Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I'm your guest host for today. My name is Dr. Nasir, and what's on tap for today? Well, we've got part series of the Vice debates that basically brought together gun owners from various walks of life. These are gun owners, gun users. They're Democrats, they're Republicans, conservatives, liberals, independents, progressives, but they've all shot guns, they've all used guns, and they brought together to debate about gun usage, gun laws, the Second Amendment, all that stuff, folks. All of the bantering and the discussion back and forth. We're going to get to that in the next few seconds. But before we do, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Put your comments down below. Let's get to the video right now.
How do I defend myself and my children against two guys who have no? And you said yourself that the police may not make it there in time. Tell me.
You know what? The best chance you got in a situation like that is to get out the house.
She just stated that they reach
30
far.
rounds apiece. That's 90 rounds of bullets firing through the home.
I can outrun that?
You need to get out of the house.
Oh, sir, I stand my ground. Sorry.
Thank you all for coming today. My name is Keegan Hamilton. I'm a correspondent with Vice News. Obviously, we couldn't get somebody to represent every single perspective on this, but we've tried to get across the range here. And we're here today to talk about guns. It's a polarizing topic. It can be a controversial topic. And I think in some ways, arguing about what to do about guns and gun policy is about as American as apple pie. Raise your hand if you've ever shot a gun. Now, keep your hand up if you currently own a gun. All right? Keep your hand up if you own more than one gun. Keep your hand up if you own more than 10 guns. Keep your hand up if you own any AR-15s. How does shooting a gun make you feel?
I feel powerful. I feel confident.
Fun is pretty much what I'm thinking about and what I'm feeling when I'm shooting a gun. It's a good time.
It's like Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility.
Facts.
Determined, I guess, when I pick up a gun. Loaded, not loaded. Am I shooting? Am I shooting responsibly?
It's always been a very neutral experience for me because of things like that, where it's just about doing everything correctly.
Yeah.
I usually feel tired after shooting a lot. A lot of the training is extensive, and as an instructor, I'm usually also teaching while I'm shooting firearms.
If shooting a gun is exhausting, like teaching people to shoot guns is even more exhausting.
But it's exciting because you can empower somebody else. Like after it, you may feel tired and exhausted, but these people might be that much safer because of what you taught them.
How many of y'all are longtime gun owners? Raise your hands. And how many are new gun owners who've just got into gun ownership and shooting? Okay.
I grew up around them, but I recently moved somewhere where I could personally own them.
I started, closer to 2018, 2019, when I just turned 18 years old and was legally allowed to buy guns. I did not grow up around guns. I started owning them because of different political conditions that we were under.
I think the reason why I don't own a gun, even though it always felt like a given, I grew up in San Antonio, and as a first-generation American growing up, I wanted to be a good American. I wanted to observe what everyone else was doing and be like, okay, that's how you be an American. That's how you do it. But then I went out to a really big defensive shooting training. It's like 1,000 rounds over a weekend, lots of like pressure exercises. And I was like, this is a whole lifestyle that I'm not willing to take up.
Can we talk about why you guys chose to own guns?
Law enforcement.
Yeah, similar. I'm military, or former military, and carried a handgun concealed while I was deployed at 19.
I grew up in rural Virginia, and so for us, it was more of tradition. The first firearm I received or owned was the first firearm my father owned, which was a hunting rifle. And so for us, we were taught to take care of it, appreciate it, but know that it has a place.
My dad grew up in rural Pennsylvania, so I mean, he was shooting his whole life, he hunted, and so he thought it was important for us to learn pretty young kind of about guns and how they work.
When I was growing up, it was always the bad guys that had guns, and I felt like I didn't have the emotional maturity at that time to own guns. But as I got older, I started seeing it more as recreation. And then as, the climate in the world changed and events happened in my life, I started to really be empowered by the security that they offered for me.
Well, I actually used to be a gun control activist. And there were certain events that were happening where violence against trans women was, increasing across the country. And there was this one video that went viral where a trans woman was violently mobbed in a gas station one night. And that was a clicking moment for me. At that moment, I was like, you know what? The only thing that would have stopped her from this violent mob was, in fact, a gun.
How does...
Actually, we got to go back to this thing here where this girl is talking about, where basically she's saying here that trans woman, and that's, listen, that's a tragedy. Obviously, that's there, but she has to realize too, by her continuing to say this thing, that a trans woman, the only thing that would have saved her, it was a him. It was a guy. But regardless, guy or girl, in order to protect yourself, you would need to have some protection in terms of a firearm. So it shouldn't matter whether you're transgender or you're a trans woman or a trans man or whatever, LGBTQIA, gay, straight, whatever. Man, woman, two genders, that's the binary. Regardless of the fact, you need to protect yourself. And I will say that I was a little bit, I guess these are just little biases that we have too, that when you take a look at this group of men and women that are here, there were some that I found surprisingly were for gun ownership and had guns or whatever. Obviously, I mean, this is just the way that we're sort of, again, these are our own biases that we form just by looking at that. So it's going to be interesting as the debate moves forward, what their basic thought process are, because it looks like there's, as we said, there's Democrats here, Republicans, there's conservatives, there's liberals or whatever. And by looking at some of them, that's what we do, don't we? We basically, oh, that probably looks conservative, looks liberal, looks Republican, looks Democrat. I mean, that's what we do all the time. And we sit down, we talk, we listen, we find out, what their thoughts and ideas are. And then we go, oh, you know what? Completely, we were either right or we were basically wrong. Anyways, let's continue here.
Increasing across the country. And there was this one video that went viral where a trans woman was violently mobbed in a gas station one night. And that was a clicking moment for me. At that moment, I was like, you know what? The only thing that would have stopped her from this violent mob was, in fact, a gun.
How does the Second Amendment affect the way that you view gun ownership as a right in this country?
I think my right to defend myself how I see fit comes from my creator, not the Second Amendment. A lot of people hinge on the Second Amendment and the verbiage, and we dissect it and we try to interpret it. But ultimately, every person on this planet was born with the right to defend themselves.
I don't have any skin in the game. I don't own guns. So as far as 2A goes, I do not feel like that is a right that I personally want to protect or defend.
I feel very conflicted about the Second Amendment. At the end of the day, when we talk about the Constitution as like this sacred document, I mean, it was written by a bunch of rich white guys who owned slaves, didn't let women vote, and thought the Electoral College was a good idea.
So now there it is. There it is right there, right? In terms of what we're, with what that guy is talking about right here, there we got it. We got a little bit from the girl on the left saying that, not really about Second Amendment, it's about the creator. Okay, fine, you know what, everybody has a right to defend themselves, okay, fine. But this guy right here went straight to the Constitution, straight to the Bill of Rights, straight to basically saying that it was a bunch of white guys, elitists, they own slaves, all right? And what do they know about anything? That's not a living, breathing document. It's an old thing. We need to change it up. And so at least this guy, I'd like to know that if somebody comes and says, we've got to take away your guns, what's he going to use as his defense to say, wait a minute, you just can't take my guns away. Why? Because it's in the Second Amendment. You ought to be thanking God, thanking somebody that you did have these old, rich, white men that wanted to break away from England and form their own country, gave you the right to have the guns that you have right now in your possession and to do what you want with them in terms of illegally. So there's a breakthrough right there, folks. It's where the political landscape is now starting to fall within this group.
At the end of the day, when we talk about the Constitution as like this sacred document, I mean, it was written by a bunch of rich white guys who owned slaves, didn't let women vote, and thought the Electoral College was a good idea. So maybe it's not a perfect document, and we should kind of update it as time progresses.
It's my right to defend myself. There is an ample amount of time between the time you call the police and the time that they arrive. It's my right to be able to protect myself in any way possible.
As a survivor of gun violence, I can't help but to think about how many people have been lost because of this perceived right or this outdated document. I feel like this debate around the Second Amendment is oversimplifying a really serious and complex issue. And unfortunately, there's too many privileged individuals having these debates, making these decisions who aren't feeling the pain of what gun violence in our country has done to us.
In Connecticut, 2 officers were shot and killed. One guy is firing 80 rounds. One guy. I don't know if those 2 cops combined had 80 rounds. Now, I don't know how else they would have defended themselves other than a firearm, but it also comes out to who gets it out first. You know, personally, forget law enforcement, I have a 4.5-year-old son. I want to have a chance that, God forbid, I'm in a store and I see somebody down an aisle, or I hear a sound that sounds like a firearm, that there's a good chance that at least my son's going to survive.
We're in a world where we are literally out-arming who's supposed to be protecting us. And it's all coming from a place of fear. If we're thinking about how to protect our homes or to protect our families, there are better, lower risk ways to do that. And as someone who's been shot, having a gun on me would have not saved my life.
Another, this is a liberal coming out here as well. And I think she is a little bit as well too, but that's fine. This guy definitely looks like he's on the conservative side. But this guy here loves his guns, says they're, tradition from growing up and being born and raised and grown up in Virginia. But now the virtue signaling is coming out, folks. The wokeism is coming out. You can hear it. You can see it. They're saying it. And see, they can say it because they've got the ability to have their gun. They own their guns. They have them. They've shot them. They're going to continue passing this thing down tradition to family for generations, as this gentleman basically is saying that he did, that was done with him through his father and grandfather and whatever. So now when you've got that privilege and you have that gun or that whatever it is, whatever that right is, well, now you can use what? VS. You can virtue signal all you want. And that makes it good. And that makes it okay. Because you've got what you need already. It's like the rich person who says, you know what? I'd love to pay more taxes. I think everybody needs to pay more taxes. It's like the billionaires that come out and say, yeah, absolutely, I'm for higher taxes. I'd love to pay, go ahead, tax me. But they never send that extra check to the government, right? They've got hundreds or thousands of lawyers throughout their company, CPAs, accountants, looking for every conceivable way to save money in taxes. But then they're out there when they're talking on the TV shows. What are they doing? Oh, yeah, tax me. I'd love to pay more taxes. Well, no one's stopping you from writing an extra check, buddy. And the same thing over here. You can virtue signal all you want. Makes you feel good. I own that gun, but they're guilty about owning the gun because they know that it doesn't play well with the left, with the moderates, with the progressives, with the Democrats, with the, their acolytes in media and the mafia media cartels and the hypocrites in Hollywood and the academics in the elite institutions. They know that doesn't play well, that they own a gun. So in order to virtue signal, that's what they're doing right now. That's all it is, folks. Concisely, precisely put to you by Dr. Nasir Shaikh.
If anything, it would have cost me my life because it gives you this false concept of confidence in a life or death situation when your first instinct should be to flee or evade.
What are your ideas about other cost-effective ways to defend yourself?
Well, when we think about defending your home or your body or from harm or assault, the most impactful thing you can have is a known deterrent. A gun is not a known deterrent. And so when we think about keeping our home safe, specifically simple things like having a dog, having the lights on, having a fence, having a security system, a security camera is more effective at protecting your homes.
What do you guys think are actual good ideas in terms of gun regulation, if any?
The question I have is, are we going after the guns or are we going after the people that are using them illegally? The second something happens, they don't talk about the person that committed the crime, but if someone's not on the opposite side of the gun, it will never go off unless the trigger is pulled. And I think there needs to be more accountability, whether legally or not legally used. There needs to be accountability for people to say, wait a minute, if I do something really dumb with this or hurt somebody, I might not see the light of day for a while.
We've created this image in America, and I partially blame the media, that violence in Black communities is a result of criminal activity, when in reality, most situations are interpersonal conflicts that are not connected to another felony. And that false sense of having a firearm will make me safer turns what would have been a fist fight, an argument, into something that causes someone their life.
You move your finger and you end a human life. That's a responsibility that we should take a lot more seriously in this country. You get convicted of domestic violence. No guns for you. Universal background checks, I think, would be a great idea. And I think the idea that we don't treat something that was created for killing people with that kind of respect is a really weird disconnect in this country.
I think a big problem with people have with like universal background checks, requiring regulation and accreditation. I teach and I give out certificates and all that, but states have been sued for the fact that they won't give it to BIPOC. They won't give it to poor people. They won't give these rights to trans people. You start denying these rights and like, oh, well, we regulate this, but we only give it to the rich and we only give it to the well-connected, right? And then on the other side, we don't make education available to all these people that can't afford it. Like, why isn't it free? Why can't you go down to City Hall and take a class on how to teach your kids about firearm safety? We've kind of gotten rid of all of that. We've kind of moved to an abstinence-only education culture. If you have someone in your community who commits a crime, that it's the community's fault. Like,
It's the community's fault. Somebody commits a crime. It's the community's fault. You don't know that person at all. You live in a community of 500,000 people. What the hell is this guy talking about? It's amazing. It's amazing. But the virtue signaling that is going on here is absolutely palpable. It's absolutely unbelievable. These guys virtue signaling. It's my fault. Right? They're selling drugs in the city. It's my fault. I have nothing to do with it, but it's my fault because it's my community around there. Somebody commits a crime, it's my fault. I should go to jail for that. Not the guy who robbed anybody, not the guy that raped somebody, not the person that murdered somebody, but me, the innocent person that didn't even know what was going on. It's my fault. I should be the one that should be going to jail. These guys are unbelievably naive.
how did that person get to that point?
A lot of folks here say that they own guns as a self.
Anyways, I could go on and on and on and on and on with the diatribe or whatever, but there's so much more of this, debate or whatever. So we're going to continue that. So look for the different parts. I think they're going to have 4 or 5 parts, to this video. And we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. I've been your guest host. My name is Dr. Nasir. Please subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, like, share, and follow us. Let us know what you think in the comments below. You think I was a little bit too harsh on some of these people that were a little bit more liberal and more virtue signaling than I should have been? Or were you basically on the same page, as I was? Let us know in your comments below. I'll leave you with my final thought, which is, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. We'll see you again next time, folks. Take care and stay safe.